Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday Market Update on this Tuesday afternoon, December 1st, 2020. With me today is Andrew Cox. How are you, my friend?
I'm great. It's crazy to see December 1st, right? I'm just thinking back that it seems like we just got through March, and now March is just 3 months away. It's like this year has, the first 6 months of the year were the longest 6 months. The last 6 months have been really fast. It's just been a weird time.
Yeah, I agree with you. It took like a year and a half to get to like July.
Yeah. It felt like that.
Zoom. I tell you what, I'm one of those people, when the end of the summer is coming, I lament it. You know, I don't like it. I like the heat. But now that we're here, I like the cold. I woke up to a little snow today.
Oh, I don't like it. Taking the dogs out at 6 a.m. in this freezing weather.
I don't have dogs to take out.
Oh, well, there you go. I don't think you'd like it as much if you did.
I get that.
All right, what we got going on today? We got a huge show.
We got a great show. Zach is not going to be here, but we'll do Sonar from here, right? But we do have Anthony Smith, and we've got some, I think we have some ISM numbers, do we not?
Yeah, the ISM came out just the other day. We also got some construction spending that came out this morning.
Nice.
So we got some cool, we saw some growth. We'll hear from Anthony on that.
All right, great. Yeah, so we have that, and then we have Jared Flinn, who's the operating partner at Bulk Loads. We'll be talking about the harvest and demand for capacity and exports on the bulk side. And then Lee White, who's the vice president of strategy at TuSimple. They've had a lot of announcements over this past year, right? A lot of partnerships, a lot of growth.
Yeah, they have been in the news. They've kept themselves in the news. You know, we talked about this at the Freight Tech Awards. It's every year, if you make it past the hurdle, especially for a capex intense industry like autonomous vehicles, it's good. You see others fall out of the industry like Starsky. We saw some major failures this year. But TuSimple is seemingly pushing forward. They keep rolling out new deals, new partnerships. So yeah, good things. We're going to hear from Lee.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I met them at the Trans-Pacific Maritime 18 in Long Beach. So, yeah, it's really exciting to see what's going on there. And we've got Nick Austin going to do some weather here. We've got see if we're going to get some more snow.
Yeah, I could hope for snow, right? If it's going to be cold, bring me some snow.
Yeah, it might as well.
It's not worth it for me to have 35 and sleeting.
Yeah, no.
It's nasty.
It really is.
But this is an interactive show, so make sure to get your comments and questions in on FreightWaves LinkedIn. And then we're live here today, Tuesday. This is the only time we have it this week because Thursday, we got Space Waves coming up.
That's right.
So we're going to talk about that later on in the show. But we're going to start off with the news. As we always do, I'll kick it off.
Yeah, let's do that. You want to kick off the headlines here?
Sure. Yeah, so the first one here we've got is KLLM Transport Services, which is based in Jackson, Mississippi. It's the second largest temperature-controlled carrier in North America, and they just made big news by raising earnings potential for their over-the-road drivers and regional independent contractors by more than 9%. This could be one of the biggest pay raises in the history, or at least recent history, of trucking. They now say that fuel surcharges will cover all paid miles, both loaded and empty. The new plan will also push pay per compensated mile to $105 for over-the-road contractors and more than $138 for regional contractors. This new pay increases are in addition to some other programs that KLLM has established this year, including a previously announced $7,000 sign-on bonuses for over-the-road drivers, as well as regional and dedicated. The KLLM president, Jim Richards, said that the resolve and the determination of their drivers and their independent contractors throughout this year has been remarkable. So, and they're not the first, right? So they're probably not going to be the last. We've seen Werner, we've seen Heartland, we've seen a lot of major carriers increase pay this year. But what does that tell you about those huge equipment orders I've seen? You know, this has been a discussion that I've had ongoing. It's like if there's two sides of a coin here. There's a lot of people buying trucks, but the big carriers are also increasing wages, which tells me they're having difficulty keeping those seats seated.
Yeah, I mean, we've spoken to that, right? Is these record sales on equipment in general, right? We had Class 8 sales, and we also had trailer sales, right? Mm-hmm. Did we specifically in the reefer market have record sales in the reefer?
I'm not sure about
units
reefer
but
trailers.
I know in the trailers specifically, or in general trailers, but. We talked about how is that going to affect capacity if everybody's very bullish going through first quarter, second quarter, especially on the maritime side, which drives a lot of our freight, right? The over the road freight. Yeah, that new capacity doesn't do anything unless you have drivers and spending 9%. We had some people spend 12% increases. No, am I wrong?
I'm not sure. I remember seeing 7.
Like a 12%.
But yeah, in any case, we've seen a lot of major carriers push up rates this year, and that's something that's really difficult to claw back. You know, once rates are set, they're very difficult to bring back down. So it's this is a decision by them that they're kind of expecting this rally to have legs and expecting this thing to last into 2021. So we'll see how it works out for them. We know that a lot of people are doing it as well.
Yeah, you think this is we're getting bidding wars starting?
It seems so. I mean, but I think they're looking to the capacity constraints at the driver training schools. We saw that Stevens report that came out a couple weeks ago that only 57% of the pre-pandemic capacity is currently available. So there are bottlenecks that are going to be for drivers. So I think these companies are trying to do their best to make sure that they keep the good drivers.
Yeah, I mean, you have to if you're going to do new tractors or even just keep up with demand right now. So we'll see how it goes. Bidding war or not, you got to have drivers,
That's right?
And why it's there or not, if it's the capacity or through the training schools or not, who knows?
All right, so the next one I got is a story from Greg Miller. This is, in the news, we see story after story of companies that are dead men walking. We talk about movie theaters, cruise lines, retail outlets,
right.
Event organizers, big city offices even. But ocean shipping is not in that category. There's no existential threat to transporting cargo by sea.
Right.
Yet 2020 has got Greg Miller questioning whether ship owners still have a long-term future on Wall Street. Greg interviewed 3 analysts to get a better understanding of where Wall Street sentiment lies. And the good news is all 3 of them see a path forward for the shipping companies on the stock market. Deutsche Bank analyst Amit Mehrotra said that when people start asking this kind of question, you know that you're closer to the point to getting back. It's kind of a darkest before dawn kind of thing, which is a good sign, right?
Right.
He said, and he also said that it wasn't that long ago when his phone was ringing off the hook about tanker stocks. Remember that back in early 2020 when they had the oil and we had the floating oil tankers to nowhere?
Oh yeah, everybody's like, man, I wish I would have known this.
Right, everybody wanted to know that.
Yeah, sitting there doing nothing. Yeah.
But the data's undeniable. The market cap of the entire universe of U.S. listed ship owners has fallen from nearly $30 billion at the beginning of the year to less than $20 billion as of last Friday. That's a year-to-date decline of 34% off an already low base. The median market cap of U.S. listed shipping stocks has fallen into deep micro-cap territory from $420 million at the beginning of the year to now $209 million. But analysts do think that Biden will be better for ship owners. They don't believe that Biden will be as hawkish, and that could lead to a tailwind. They also believe that the vaccine will be beneficial to them. If we think about global oil demand, it's down 8%. A lot of that is due to the lack of passenger travel and jet fuel demand.
Right.
And then the last thing is they just think that there's a rotation away from growth stocks into value stocks, which should benefit these guys.
See, now that makes sense to me. The rotation from the growth stocks to the value stocks, that makes sense to me. I suppose it does to you as well. It seems like a pretty obvious point. I guess there's different ideas. And also the vaccine, I get it from the point of oil moving, right? And having that, but this is all carriers. This is all ships, right? This is not specifically bulk oil. Right?
Correct. But I think he kind of laid it out in 3 different ways.
Right,
One,
sure.
that the Biden administration will probably be better for trade and will be less hawkish, which could be good for the main container liners.
Right.
And then you have the oil liners that could be benefiting from an increased travel and people getting back on the roads and more jet fuel demand. And then I guess overall that point of the rotation.
Right.
Could be
but
beneficial.
as someone who's certainly not as knowledgeable as you in the stock markets and the finance world, couldn't you make the argument that a vaccine and people getting back out and running around will hurt freight a little bit on the ocean because that ancillary spending that is going into e-commerce and so on and so forth will go away and go into travel and live events and...
Yeah, agreed. I can definitely make the argument. I can see both sides here. Whether or not that I guess it's going to depend on where the fall and rise comes from. If it falls on freight demand and it rises on oil demand, maybe there's a net zero change. I don't know. I think we're going to have to just see how it plays out over the next year when people do get that vaccine and do go back out traveling. How much will they be traveling? How willing are people going to be to get on an airplane even if they have the vaccine? That's going to be a question for people.
Well, right now the carriers are rocking and rolling.
Absolutely.
I mean, you look at those prices that are out there, $4,000, $5,000 a container, et cetera.
It's nuts.
Yeah, it's crazy.
All right,
what do we got next?
We got the next story is the OOIDA's president and CEO, Todd Spencer, is lobbying President-elect Joe Biden to give him the top slot at the FMCSA. Spencer is a trucker through and through. He began his trucking career as an employee driver back in 1974, then became an owner-op in 1976 after purchasing a truck. He assumed the role as the editor of OOIDA's magazine, Landline, and communications director for OOIDA in 1981 after selling a couple of his trucks. He was then elected executive vice president of OOIDA in 1992. He held that position for 26 years before being appointed president in January 2018. He was then elected to a 5-year term as president and CEO of the by the association's board in April 2018. He said in his letter to President-elect Biden, he pointed out that the FMCSA's primary mission is to reduce crashes involving large trucks. He believes the industry has become dysfunctional due in part to trucking regulations mandated by Congress that have done nothing for highway safety. He stated that there have never been more regulations today, and there's never been more enforcement of those rules than there are today, yet highway safety is moving in the wrong direction. He believes that's because the regulations have been created without the direct involvement of those behind the wheel.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with his sentiment. You know, I'm anti-regulation in most cases, but I wouldn't, you know, I would think that given the election and the new administration, the Biden administration, that you're thinking, I mean, at least I am, that there'll be somewhat of a return at least to more regulation as we saw under the Obama administration, right? I mean, they're both Democratic. We would see that. This seems a little bit like he's kind of like, he would be almost like Trump's choice, right?
It seems that way. I mean, you know, that's the typical cycle we see is regulation, deregulation, regulation, deregulation, back and forth. And Trump touted that he was a deregulator, you know, all those pictures of the cutting of the tape of the blank pieces of paper and whatnot. So, you know, I agree with you that it might not be, but I'm hoping at least that the new administration will be focused on not only expanding regulation, but making regulation more useful to the truckers. I mean, that's got to be the only hope here. And I'm hoping that Spencer, maybe with that mentality of maybe not anti-regulation, but pro-regulation that is useful for the people that actually have to abide by the rules.
And that's perfect.
And that would be my hope, that we get kind of a middle ground there.
Yeah, very, very well put. Very well put. Regulation that doesn't have the truckers' input and is not useful for the sake of having regulation to say, hey, I did something, is not useful. But, you know, bipartisan and speaking with the people, and certainly someone like Spencer, who's been behind the wheel for many
still has a CDL.
Still has a CDL and made his living doing it, is certainly valuable input. And he knows to seek those people out to get their input too, because things have changed a little bit since he's been behind the wheel, I imagine.
Definitely.
He was in the 80s, right?
Yep.
But yeah, I agree with you.
All right, so the last one we got here is it's actually from the former Department of Transportation Secretary, James Burnley, who served from 1987 to 1989 under the Reagan administration. He says whoever Biden is considering for the DOT role, it should be someone who has significant experience in managing large, well-established organizations with a particular track record of breaking down silos. And he's not wrong. The freight and transportation generally are in a period of rapid change right now. The next DOT secretary will have to oversee the integration of increasingly automated systems for trucks and for automobiles. But there are three modal agencies that have a piece in that action. That's the FMCSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, and the Federal Highway Administration. So coordination between these agencies will be critical for whether the federal government expedites or impedes the development of these technologies. And he warns of agency turf wars and says the DOT secretary's job is to encourage them to work together. The two names that have made most of the speculation so far as the top spot of the DOT has been Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti and former Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel. Each of them boasts some experience needed to get Congress to focus on infrastructure, which is another big focus for the trucking industry. So, you know, this isn't exactly the focus of Burnley. He's saying they needs to get kind of a guy that can work together, break down the silos. But the people that they're going after right now, or at least the speculation, are people that are focused on infrastructure. So two different methods of strategies, but what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with I agree with what Burnley says, right? I mean, it only makes sense that you have somebody who has this experience because the turf wars are there, and these guys overlap a little bit with each other, and they're not necessarily looking at the same interests that each other is or are or whatever. You can correct me later.
Yeah, no, I
maybe
agree.
we can have Nick Austin on to correct me a little bit later. But you know what I'm saying. He's exactly right. Breaking down these silos, getting them to work together for the common good of the industry, and for, you know, infrastructure is important as well. But bringing forth that technology and also ensuring safety, et cetera, and these different regulations, and are you stepping on my toes, is a big thing, as he says, the turf wars.
And there's another point to the infrastructure. It's not just the physical infrastructure. It's also the technological infrastructure that we're going to need. I mean, we just saw last week that they're going to be rolling back some of the broadband bandwidth that the trailer pooling is using to try to get better at the
Wi-Fi bandwidth.
Right, exactly. They're trying to grow the Wi-Fi. They're using it there. But, you know, those are the type of things that they're going to have that bandwidth to be able to test these trailer pools and everything else going forward. So I think they're going to have somebody that has to do both, not only break down the silos, but also have to be able to swing that hammer and bring down and get some movement on that infrastructure.
Right. Hey, real quick before we go to weather, what's going on with Rand McNally?
Oh, yeah. So real quick, Rand McNally, after 5 days, their ELD system is back up.
All right.
They had what seems to be a cyber incident. The company is not specifying what the incident was, but the outage of 5 days is consistent with what we think is a serious malware or ransomware attack.
Okay, great. Hey, if we had Dooner here, we'd get a little cowbell for Rand McNally for getting it back up.
All right, let's toss it to Nick Austin. What's going on with the weather, my man?
Hey guys, I-90 is a mess up in the Northeast. That's really what it comes down to. A big snowstorm in the eastern Great Lakes. So Cleveland has been getting hit really hard up there, up into Erie, Pennsylvania, western New York, heading up towards Buffalo. There's been accidents everywhere along Interstate 90. So there's going to be a lot of delays for any truckers trying to get through there. This is a second day in a row that this region has seen problems because of this snowstorm. It's just been spinning over the same area. And here it is on Sonar Critical Events. We've got the radar up for you to see already. Everything you see in blue on there is where the snow is falling. The darker the blue, the heavier the snow up in that region. Western Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh area also getting hit, and even some areas down in West Virginia seeing some snowfall. So this is just going to keep cranking through the rest of the day. It's not really going to budge too much. So some parts of the Cleveland area had about a foot of snow yesterday, and we could see an additional 8 to 12 inches in Cleveland and all the way up into western New York by the end of the day before it starts fading out. And then on Wednesday, tomorrow, we're going to see some kind of residual lake effect snows up in western New York too. So even around midweek, it's not going to be done. But all these areas here from Cleveland, those other spots that I mentioned, are all under various winter weather alerts through the rest of the day. So I-90 is going to be a mess there. Now, we had some snow down south here in the Chattanooga area, FreightWaves headquarters, some snow flurries in the city yesterday. Didn't really see much accumulation, but some unusually cold air all the way down to the Gulf Coast. So this is really important for reefer drivers out there. You have that freezable freight in those trailers. If you're heading along I-10 later tonight, across much of the western Florida Panhandle, rather, and then I-75 from South Georgia to the northern suburbs of Tampa. All these areas here, we're talking about another hard freeze like we had late last night and early this morning. So if they have to park overnight, we have to make sure they idle. Those protect from freeze protocols are going to be really important across all these areas. Unusually cold for that part of the country, particularly for this time of the year. So the rest of the country is pretty quiet, but a little later in the show, going to talk a little bit about what may be happening in the tropics. Yesterday was the official last day of the Atlantic hurricane season, but that doesn't mean that more storms couldn't develop. So we'll talk more about that later in the show.
All right, excellent.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you, Nick. And we got some people in here. So Rhonda Bompenza Zimmerman. Good morning, everybody. Hello. Obviously, she's here. Chris Marciniak says the goal is to deregulate, but have baseline that keeps a baseline that keeps businesses growing and help start new businesses. Talking about the different regulations there for the FMCSA and so on, which makes complete sense. Nico Brown says, good morning, everybody. I keep forgetting to get a Sonar demo. We can hook you up with that, my friend. No issue there at all. James Fry there, Nick says, here in Michigan, we got lucky. Drivers slow down and be safe. And I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, right there where it was nice and just the foot of snow. That's
I was going to ask you about that. Is that something you were used to growing up with? I know you lived in Miami as well. So which do you prefer? You think Chattanooga's a nice middle ground?
Chattanooga's perfect. Yeah, when I moved here, they called me a halfback because I moved halfway back.
I gotcha.
Chattanooga, you get all 4 seasons. It's pretty nice. But when it's cold, if it's going to be cold, you might as well be up there in a snow belt. Right?
I agree.
If you don't have to drive.
Yeah, if you don't have to drive, and if you don't live in the city where you don't get all the nasty mud snow, that stuff is disgusting. When you get in the only real snow I've seen in big cities is like in New York or when I lived in Amsterdam. It just gets disgusting. All that slush.
Were you up upstate New York?
No, I didn't live. I'm just talking about. I've been in New York City a few times when it snows. No, I've actually never. I guess I've been to Niagara Falls once, but that's it.
I've lived up there in the snow belt and stuff, and I'll tell you, Nick Austin and anybody who's listening, ground blizzards upstate New York, absolutely awful. Clear blue sky above your head, can't see 2 feet in front of you for hours and hours.
Jeez.
Absolutely the worst. Let's take a look at Sonar a little bit.
Let's do it. What you got going on?
Sound good?
That's good.
Yeah, so I have it pulled up here, and I've got the outbound tender volumes, right? We were talking about this morning, and you know, this is a 7-day moving average, right? So you see the holiday trough that we're in right now, which doesn't mean that today volumes have dropped off the cliff. The 7-day volume is off, but I've got it pulled up. So you've got blue is this year, and then you've got 2019 in orange and 2018 in green. And what we're looking at here is after the holiday, I mean, this is going to tick up here in the next couple of days, right? Because you got volumes really high. Now, seasonally over the last 2 years, you would see this kind of trickle off down towards Christmas. And then the Christmas dip, obviously, and then go into the first quarter, which is always soft. What's your thoughts right now?
Well, my thoughts are immediately, just for this week and actually for the couple weeks leading into Christmas. I think that they're going to be seasonally strong compared to the last year.
Oh,
so,
yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
Look at the tender lead times right before the Thanksgiving holiday. They were already pushing out, expecting this to be a strong week. I think we're going to see volumes pop back up significantly this week. And moving into Q1, I mean, I don't think the vaccine is going to be here quick enough to change people's spending habits. I think people are going to be still spending a lot on goods. They're going to be reluctant to go out and spend money at restaurants or on vacation. There's not going to be sporting events or music events to people to go to. So I think people are still going to be spending a lot on goods, which is good for freight demand.
I would agree with you, and we can take a look at the ocean shipments out here, and let's just look at that really quick. And I agree with you. What I was talking about on FreightWaves Now this morning was the same thing. I mean, obviously, it's not going to drop down to those levels, right? And there's not going to be any drop off click. I think it's not level, but I think it continues to rise through December.
Really?
At least a little bit.
I mean, that's the way it was trending prior to
and that's the way it was trending prior, and that's kind of what has happened after each holiday throughout this year. And I don't see the, like you said, to your point, I don't see the spending habits going on. One thing I wanted to ask you about that, though, before we look at this, and we can throw up the imports at any time because I'm going to get to it in a second, but so Black Friday was, 21.6?
Online spending up 21.
Okay, so online spending. Now that's delayed shipping, right?
Yes.
So doesn't that support further freight volumes coming over the next few weeks?
A lot of it was also buy online, pick up in store. We saw delivery up 200%. BOPIS was up 100% year over year. So there was a significant portion of it that was bought online, pick up in store. But yes, in theory,
a 21% increase, we would be thinking freight's going to be pretty strong, right?
I think the entire holiday demand is going to be pretty strong, up in the mid single digits year over year growth in total. But that said, e-commerce spending will be up considerably, 75-80%. Year over year for the entire holiday. So that's great for shipping volumes.
Yeah, the one thing I didn't get into this morning that I wanted to a little bit was the ocean index that we have, the ocean dashboard that we have, and these are the bookings, right? These aren't imports,
right?
So these are 7 days out. What is not even on the water yet, not even stuffed in a container yet.
It's equivalent to our outbound tender volume index in that it's the tenders, not so much the actual shipments. Am I reading that correctly?
Well, it's actually it's not. Well, it's a little different than that. It's 7 days advance. This stuff's not even in containers yet, right? The imports that we have are clearing ports today.
Gotcha.
Right, so that's shipments right now. This stuff's not even on the water yet. So this is looking out 7 days what those volumes are going to be looking at. The top portion there in the center right here, it says Ocean Shipment Index next 7 days, is just that. It's shipments. It's not TEUs. It could be 100 shipments on a TEU. You know, they could be LCL, or they could be 100 TEUs for one shipment.
Right.
So those are shipments, and you see the strength of these shipments is pretty strong. The blue is this year. The mustard color here is last year, and you can see the change in the index much higher. And the TEUs we're seeing down here. Now these are TEUs. Now TEU could have like I said, it could be 1/15th or 100th of a shipment, or it could be 100 shipments. But these are the volume of TEUs, or 20-foot equivalents, that are coming across, and also very strong over last year. And see the shipment index over the top 10 countries over last year and the top U.S. ports over last year, all in the positive, and several over 100%.
Yeah, and you're seeing a lot. Some of those, the biggest growth have been on the East Coast ports. Look at the Panama spread has gone deeply negative this year, so it's been more efficient and cheaper to ship to the East Coast, so that people are taking advantage of that. I wrote about that in my first point of sale, actually, kind of the capacity arms race that Amazon and Walmart are engaging in, each going to the opposite coast.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and so, you talk to Steve Ferreira and others, and even Chris Richards over at Steam Logistics. Everybody's bullish about the imports just moving forward and moving forward. I pull up the imports that we look towards right now, and you're looking at, the imports by the different verticals. Distribution 8.3, retail 41%. It looks strong across the board, right? It's not just retail. And you look at the difference between the retail on the right-hand side in blue and the durable goods in green. Both are showing pretty strong support. If I come down here and look at rates, I kind of wanted to touch base with this for you just for 1 second. And what we're looking at here is the pressure on the rates, right? I've got our on the far left on the market table there are the, I've got it sorted so that it has the highest van rates per mile by lane, which is the green on the right-hand side. So you're looking at Las Vegas, LA to Las Vegas at 506, but you're looking at Los Angeles to Phoenix at 405.
Yeah, anything out of Los Angeles.
Anything out of Los Angeles is absolutely crazy. And you look at those things. So we looked at a few of those things there that are, within these freight markets and imports. We've got Anthony Smith now to talk a little bit about, I believe we've got ISM numbers and some other interesting news that's going on. Anthony, what's going on?
That's right, Mike. So we have some ISM numbers. The Purchasing Managers Index got updated for the most recent month, and we saw that there was a slowing effect, so down into the mid-50s. So as you remember going over some of the manufacturing trends last month, or just in the last couple of weeks, I was really surprised at some of the strength that we saw in not just the industrial production numbers, but some of the new orders numbers as well. I actually had to make that admittance that it was outpacing my expectations. So we saw a return to form for our expectations for overall manufacturing with a slowing effect for the most recent ISM number. Now the overall number is still in that expansion territory, but it's down into the mid-50s, so still very much strong. I think it's around 57.5 if I'm not mistaken, but there is some downward movement here in the overall rate of growth. So overall still expanding, but coming down. The new orders component still very strong in the mid-60s, but starting to come down as well. So we are seeing that there might be some slowing effects as we go into that fourth quarter as we expected. The big thing that I think is really going to be telling is that employment aspect of it. So we were really touting and excited and surprised to see that employment for the subsector for manufacturing and the PMI was expanding. So it has since returned into contraction. So really showing some of those COVID impact levels that's really having to the overall industry within manufacturing. Respondents have gone on to say that some quarantine activities for having to quarantine certain employees have really impacted production and hiring. So we are seeing COVID levels increasing, impacting construction and overall production within manufacturing as expected.
So, Anthony, tell me, so I'm thinking that we shouldn't be too concerned over this drop since we're coming off a 2-year high in October. Am I reading that correctly? And if so, is this employment number the most concerning part of this report?
I think definitely when we're looking at the employment numbers, the most concerning part, just because that's going to have downstream effects with different individuals being able to make purchases. And I mean, I'm always looking into the numbers for employment, whether it be not the ISM, PMI employment subsector, jobs claims, or just an outright unemployment rate. But I think definitely that's going to be the main takeaway, at least for me on my end. The positive sides are, as you mentioned, we are still at very high levels for the overall PMI. We're looking at the new orders component that's still very strong in the mid-60s. But it's also important to note that this is a diffusion index, and we're looking at a month-to-month basis, and we can't quite look at it on, it doesn't quite mean that just because it's at a 5-year high or a 10-year high, that's the highest that it's ever been in 5 or 10 years. So always kind of keeping that in mind when we're looking at the PMI. But overall, still positive news, showing that there's expansion, but definitely concerned about that employment subsector.
Mm-hmm. Well, Anthony, what about construction spending? Did we notch another month of growth in October?
That's right, Andrew. So we've gone and talked about this all the time. I think at the beginning of the pandemic, we went over housing starts, how we expected housing construction to remain strong and be one of the shining stars throughout the pandemic, and it has. And so what we saw with the latest number for the construction spending was that it was up, I think, roughly around 1.3% on a month-to-month basis. Now, when we're looking at this on a year-over-year basis, this is up over 14% when we're looking at overall construction spending. Of course, a lot of that strength is going to come from the residential side. When we're looking at non-residential construction spending, there's going to be, of course, a lag there. So we're looking at things like office spending, amusement, hospitality, things like that. Definitely going to be lagging from on a month-to-month basis, and certainly on a year-over-year basis. We're looking at somewhere around the 20% plus decline on a year-over-year basis. We're looking at subsectors like hospitality and offices and things like that. So not too surprising that we're seeing those declines, but still positivity for residential spending overall.
Anthony, before I let you go, what about your expectations for 2021? Do you think the momentum can continue for single family?
Definitely. I think there is a lot of, I think, some pessimism just because I think I've heard murmurings of maybe there's a bubble building up and things like that. But we are essentially looking at a tale of two consumers, as I like to put it. And those consumers that have been able to work remotely and really kind of maintain their employment and secure their jobs, they have been able to really kind of take advantage of these low mortgage rates. The thing that's really kind of propping up some of these existing home sales and these prices has been the low inventory. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now. We're seeing low existing home inventories, and we're seeing builders not being able to keep up pace with those new builds. And so with those existing homes being so low, I think there's still a lot of scared potential home sellers not sure about putting their homes on the market, whether or not open house is a good idea right now, or if they don't feel comfortable doing a virtual event. But it's showing, I've seen a lot of anecdotal evidence of individuals putting their homes on market, and especially if it's those entry levels to mid-level homes, they're getting snatched up well above asking. So definitely expect housing to maintain some of that momentum going into 2021. If I had to pick a segment, that would be the one. Of course, I'm always saying that COVID is going to really dictate the trajectory for each individual subsector, but housing construction is definitely one that I feel a little bit more confident about compared to other ones, other than, of course, e-commerce and non-store retail sales.
All right.
Very good. Hey, before you leave, Anthony, I've got a question here from off of LinkedIn. James Fry, who's a freight manager at Universal Truckload Incorporated, mainly runs flatbeds. And I know, the economic numbers, the construction numbers, et cetera, oil, et cetera, can really give you an insight into what that market is. He asks, what's your market? What does it look like to us in the flatbed market? The forecast, how is that looking?
Definitely. So I think flatbed has had some of the rougher parts of it. I mean, we're looking at the flatbed outbound tender rejection, Vincent. You can definitely talk to this compared to dry van, compared to reefer. Flatbed has definitely been one of the laggards. And so I think when we're looking at flatbed capacity and truckloads, I think our flatbed trailer types, I think we're definitely going to have to look at, if we're looking within the private sector, of course, going to have to look at construction and building product materials. I think that's going to be the area that's going to have all of the strength. It's going to be a little bit slow, I think, for some of those manufacturers. So I think that's not going to be a vertical that's going to offer a lot of activity. Now, if you can get involved with some defense spending potential contracts, that would be an area of opportunity. Mm-hmm. Of course, when we look at defense spending, this is going to be one of the most volatile sectors. And so if you can lock down certain contracts, flatbed operators should be able to really kind of supplement some of their lagging months or downtimes if they should have some potential manufacturers that usually get filled with private sector. So thinking housing, construction, of course, building product materials, and of course, those ever volatile defense spending contracts.
Excellent stuff, Anthony. Thank you so much. Yeah, I would think, the sector of flatbed that depends on the oil production is going to be lagging for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, and that's a main thing there. We just saw another oil field trucking company go out.
Yeah, and I mean, you have long-term cyclical issues there, too. I mean, and especially with this new administration, they're going to be focused on green energy. They're going to be focused on electric vehicles.
Yeah,
it's going to continue to put pressure on them.
Absolutely. We have our first guest, Jared Flinn from Bulk Loads, and so we'll change modes. We're going to go from flatbed here to some bulk loads. Jared Flinn is the operating partner, I believe, at Bulk Loads. Jared, how are you doing today?
Hey, good. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, you guys were talking about imports, and we're on the other side of the table dealing with exports with grain, so it's a perfect segue.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear about it, man. So I'm seeing that I read that demand from China is extremely high. Tell me a little bit about what's going on in the soybeans. How much of that? I said the demand for soybean and corns is very high, and they're actually pushing that American stocks down to the lowest levels in 7 years. How much of that has to do with the bad weather we saw throughout the summer?
Yeah, so right now the farmers are having a great year. Soybeans are on a near almost 4-year high, record high, trading around $12 a bushel. Corn around $4. So most of these farmers are having a record year as far as production goes. What's interesting, typically in your harvest months, you're going to see your prices go down. But like you said, with China stepping up and making these big purchases, it's driving that demand high. The other thing, and it's kind of slowed down, we've seen a lot of dry weather down in South America, which was causing corn and beans to kind of rally up with that. Since then, they've been getting some rains. Right now, South America, they're kind of in their first month of the growing season for soybeans, but they're seeing adequate rainfall. So we're starting to see a little bit of that back off as far as prices go.
So Jared, let's talk a little bit about China there. You mentioned that demand has been strong from China. Do you think that this is lasting, or if it's kind of short-lived as they try to replenish their decimated pork stocks?
It's a great question. I think it's a little bit of both. And I'd be curious, we were just talking about that in the office, just how much, how full force China is right now with their economy. I mean, are they going on all 8 cylinders right now as far as their purchases? But even from last year, they're catching up quite a bit on buying. So I think this is a little bit of a lag. But I think just like our economy, their economy is running really strong right now.
Yeah, so the cycles in agricultural and commodities are short, like those that we see in trucking, right? And we're seeing a ton of new trucks, new capacity, Class 8 orders, record high, trailers, et cetera, record high. But some of us think, and some people question, the party they're coming to, is this party going to be over? We're going to have a surplus of these things. Do you see the same thing happening in agriculture? Farmers see great prices on corn, soy, they start planting more, et cetera. And does there become an imbalance? Are you worried about that type of stuff, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were just talking about that yesterday. We're starting to see, if you look at the futures prices right now, especially on corn, you're seeing an inverted market. So right now, the market's telling farmers to sell right now, but they're looking at next year. So you're actually seeing prices higher right now than they are next year. So yeah, absolutely. I think we're seeing this record harvest that's going to catch up to these guys. And I think they just got to be prepared. It's like you just said, Michael, it's very cyclical. These farmers, they have one good year with 4 average or even below years. So they're just taking profits off the table right now. Why it's good.
So Jared, talk to me a little bit about the scrap prices and how they're creating higher demand for bulk recyclables.
Yeah, we've seen as this economy's booming, we've seen scrap prices go up. Demand on trucking has been through the roof on there. When you deal with especially scrap haulers, you have a very specialized trailer type that's used, in-dump trailers and flatbeds too. But when you're dealing with the bulk commodity trailers, there's really 2. You have your regular aluminum that can haul certain scraps. When you're dealing with your regular like pig iron and hard scrap, those are steel body in-dumps that are very, very it's just very, very hard to come by, very niche. So yeah, we're seeing demand on those really, really high, which is good for the carrier.
So, Jared, I really didn't have you introduce yourself or bulk loads, but I did want to talk a little bit about you've implemented the new book this load feature on your app, and I know you've got a bulk TMS. Can you speak to a little bit about what bulk loads does and those 2 features that you guys are rolling out?
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Appreciate you bringing that up. Yeah, so just as we're seeing technology boom in the freight sector, we're trying to adapt and meet the cause of that. And again, we're a load board for the bulk commodity sector, so we focus just on the grain haulers, hopper trailers, in-dumps, anything that's going to be hauling raw bulk materials. And the next wave or phase that we've seen is really kind of creating more of that automation. So a one-stop shop, as we like to call it, creating the full load life cycle within our ecosystem. So yeah, we've accomplished having the marketplace where we match those up, but with our TMS right now, we can actually now automate the full process where that shipper, they can not only find the carrier, but they can send all the load information. The carrier can automatically book it through our app, as well as sending all the digital documents back to that shipper for payment. So we've really encompassed the full, as like you said, we call it the full load life cycle within our ecosystem.
Excellent stuff, Jared. So where do I send people who want to learn more? Bulkloads.com?
Yeah, we're on all social media. First off, bulkloads.com. It's kind of an earful, but if you want to check us out there, we're very active on our social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter feed as well. So we appreciate checking us out there. We'd love to talk to you.
Absolutely will. Thank you so much, Jared. You have a great day.
All right.
Another segment just rolling along.
Yeah, we're rolling right along. We got Lee White. I think that they're ready on the phone.
Yeah, so Lee White, TuSimple Vice President of Strategy, or I should say Vice President of Strategy at TuSimple is joining us now. So Lee, how are you doing? Thanks for being on the show.
I'm doing well. Good to see you, Michael and Andrew. Thanks for having me on.
All right. You guys have been in the news a lot lately. You've had a lot of big partnership deals. I think one of the most recent ones was this deal with the Trayton Group. Is this the first deal outside the U.S.? And can you tell me a little bit about the partnership?
It is. We're very excited about our partnership with Trayton. It really does expand TuSimple's global footprint. We're in a partnership to co-develop autonomous trucks. It gives us a great entry into the Europe market, and we're actually testing right now in Sweden.
How much different are the two trucks, right? We know that the U.S. and the European trucks they look different, but how much different is it for you guys and your technology when implementing it?
We are very focused on having an adaptable product. So the tractors are very similar. We are also in a partnership with Navistar. We announced that. But there's a lot of future developments that we know are going to change the dynamic of tractors between, electric vehicles. And we're focused on being power agnostic. So we'll work in any one of the platforms that are out there. But we're very excited about our Trayton partnership. We see good things, good ways for both of us to expand our global presence.
I'm interested between the two markets, the European market and the domestic market here in the U.S., as far as the regulations and some of those hurdles you might have to cross, or even public sentiment or driver sentiment. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between the two?
Yeah, we're very focused on the U.S. market. We feel that's the first one that's going to commercialize. It's quicker. It's moving forward. We're very pleased with where regulation is at this point in time. It is very different from the European market. It's more complicated over there and will take more time. So our focus is really on the U.S. market. We feel it's prepared for this. We feel the adoption rate is going to happen faster here in the U.S. market. So that's where the TuSimple focus is.
Lee, can we let's shift gears a little bit to another partnership that I had seen that you guys have joined, this Mobility Innovation Zone. I was very, very intrigued by this. Can you tell me a little bit about the MIZ, as it's been calling? I know it's in a collaboration with Deloitte. Can you tell me a little bit about it and who all is involved in this? Will there be any cross-pollination between you guys and some other trucking mobility startups?
Yeah, we've been in the works for several months now with the Alliance team in Hillwood. We were very pleased with what they brought to the TuSimple business model. Alliance is over 26,000 acres of office space and warehouses and DCs. It's the site of the first industrial airport. Just recently, we completed some runs that we were testing from South California to Alliance in 24 hours. So we see that as a key location for us. With a lot of brands. It's a large port, and it's going to be the anchor for us as we expand operations into Texas and beyond. We see Alliance as being a key piece of that expansion plan that we have.
Yeah, talk to that a little bit. You talk about your move from SoCal over to there, and then expanding from that market. That's part of the autonomous freight network that you're building, and you have different phases. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, exactly. We have developed, we're the first autonomous trucking company to deploy this autonomous freight network. And it's basically an ecosystem of strategically placed terminals, the high definition maps, the support network that we need as far as service partners along the way, as well as an oversight system that we call TuSimple Connect. But yes, our expansion, we're currently running autonomous routes all the way from Phoenix into Dallas. We see that as our path forward over the next couple of years. Our focus right now is on the southern half of the United States. We're going to continue to do that over the next couple of years. But, our partnership with Navistar is really going to be a nationwide network. But our map is really focused on the southern half of the United States.
So, Lee, why the southern half? Is it those states that are being more willing to work with you on regulations, or is it the layout of the land from Phoenix to Texas? It's pretty flat out there. Or is it the population density? Is it a little bit of everything?
All of that, Andrew. That is a perfect analysis of what's going on. It's a favorable traffic scenario. It's favorable topography as far as what types of roads you're on, and we've got some favorable people that are willing to work with us. Hillwood's a good example of that with that alliance partnership. It's very friendly. There's a large amount of truck traffic that goes down the I-10 corridors up through I-40 that are very attractive and good lanes that are really the sweet spot for autonomous trucking.
So, Lee, let me ask you this, because we have it's a live show and interactive, and we get a lot of comments, and there's a lot of people who are concerned about this as a high interest topic, obviously. So, to those who, there's this argument it's going to displace drivers. No, it's going to create more jobs. Well, we've got tens of thousands of job shortage in drivers, so this is only going to help the industry. What's your talking points to that?
So, the reality is there's an extreme driver shortage right now. There are 60,000 jobs that we feel are trucking jobs that are open. That's American Trucking Association that publishes that number. Mm-hmm. They expect over 110,000 driver jobs a year to be hired over the next 10 years, over 1 million driver jobs. And I want to make sure we're clear on what the TuSimple driving product is versus what it's not. Level 5 is a lot of things talked about. It's anywhere, anytime. We're not focused on that. We're focused on the middle mile product. Like an El Paso to Dallas, 623 miles. That's a very good sweet spot for autonomous trucking. The truck driving job is critical to the success of autonomous trucking. We still need truckers to make the first mile pickup. We still need them to make the local deliveries. We never see a situation where a TuSimple truck's going to drive across the George Washington Bridge and get into Manhattan to make a delivery. It's this sweet spot, this Dallas to El Paso that works. So the truck drivers that are out there, we still see them being a vital piece and part of the business case for autonomous trucking. One of the key stats that we follow is the number of truck drivers who are interested in these long haul, over the road, overnight jobs. That number continues to go down for drivers that want that. They want to be close to their family. They want to be home every night. Over 50% of the current drivers right now aren't even interested in going on road for days at a time or weeks at a time. So we see this as being a complementary position, business case for them. They'll be able to locally run deliveries in and out of the Dallas market and still be home every night with their family.
Yeah, excellent. That's a lot of what we discussed before.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like a good place to be. I do want to talk a little bit more about that autonomous freight network before we let you go. I just saw that there was another partnership, and this one was with Goodyear. So this would be for some sort of tires or maintenance. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, so exactly. Two things. One is they'll supply product for us and also repair services. But we've engaged Goodyear. We're going to do a study together on the impact of tire wear with autonomy driving. We see a huge impact to improving the efficiency of trucks and just the carbon footprint and what takes place. We studied our fuel savings with the University of California at San Diego. We established a 10% documented reduction in fuel consumption, so a 10% fuel economy savings. And our next project is with Goodyear to evaluate what's the impact on tires. An autonomously driven truck is very good at maintaining centering of the lane, and we see a reduction in the wear and tear on the tires, and we want to document that. We want to make that part of the business case as we keep moving forward to the production models.
Excellent stuff. Lee, thank you so much for being on. Real quick, we only have about a minute or two left, but what's next up for TuSimple? What are you guys looking at in the near future?
So we're going to continue to expand the autonomous freight network. We are looking forward to 2021 expanding in the Texas Triangle and beyond. We'll continue our development project with Navistar. We're on track to work with them from an engineering standpoint over the next couple of years and have Navistar produce autonomous ready TuSimple trucks in 2024. That's really our focus. We do have a plan next year to actually have a run in Arizona that we will use our virtual drivers. So we're excited about that. So that's really the three things that we're focused on as we look towards the future.
All right, that is interesting stuff. You let us know when that virtual drive goes down. We will cover that. That sounds awesome.
We absolutely will. Maybe we'll drive alongside.
Yeah, I'd like to.
That'd be really cool.
Do a live podcast.
Hey, Lee, where do people go to follow what TuSimple is doing and get caught up on the latest?
Yeah, hit our website. We have a lot of information that's out there. There's a bunch of people that are also following us publicly, but our TuSimple website's out there that's got all the information.
Excellent stuff. Thank you so much, sir. You have a great day.
Thank you. Take care.
All right.
Yeah, that's really cool. You know, it's people. Go ahead.
No.
Oh, I thought you were gonna. I thought you were gonna interrupt me with some words of wisdom.
Oh no,
you often
not.
do.
Oh, not this time. Not this time. You want to toss it to Nick? We get our last bit of weather in for today.
Yeah, let's hear what's going on there, Nick. Are we going to talk about bridges or?
Bridges, we can talk about the tropics, although there's not a lot going on, but still worth mentioning.
All right.
Also want to give a quick shout out, Rhonda, one of our loyal viewers of the program. She's out near the Phoenix area. She says it's sunny out there. It's going to be about 70 degrees today, and I think that sounds absolutely wonderful. So I hope she enjoys that out there. But yeah, there's an article on our website right now that talks about just a few of what I would call the most unforgiving bridges for drivers here in the United States, for truck drivers, mainly overpasses that they shouldn't underestimate because they have very, very low clearance. Some of them, the signage isn't that great. And, you know, if truckers head into these areas and don't know about these particular overpasses, they're going to be in big trouble. The nickname of one of them is called the can opener. So that just gives you an idea of some of the damage it can do to tractor trailers, box trucks, moving trucks, whatever. One of them is in North Carolina, one of them is in Boston, and there's another one in Kansas City. So go check that out on FreightWaves.com. It's a good article, and I think some useful information for drivers out there that maybe haven't been to these areas where these overpasses are. So let's go to Sonar Critical Events now. We'll take a look at tropics real quick. Yesterday was the official last day of the Atlantic hurricane season. But we have had storms in the past that developed after that date in December and even into the early part of the following year. Luckily in the Atlantic, it's not happening now. It's actually really quiet. There is a cyclone here, which is really tropical storm strength as far as the winds that's heading towards southern India over in that part of the world. But overall, the tropics are nice and quiet. So that's the good news. And hopefully we will not have any more named storms in the Atlantic this year. We've had 30, which is a record. We don't need any more. Let's just keep it quiet until next year. Hopefully it'll stay that way.
Yeah, we'd have to find another alphabet, right?
That's right. Yeah, I know.
What about, what's the long term for the winter? Are we expecting a worse winter than normal? Or what's the feeling out there?
Well, like any typical winter, I mean, some regions of the country will probably get more snowstorms than usual. Down here where we are in the south, we might get one good snow, but it's not supposed to be really, really harsh. It's not supposed to be unusually cold on average through the season. So it really just depends on where you are. I'm going to be looking into that a little bit more as far as some of the other regions of the country. But we're in a La Nina, which, you know, that pattern is going to affect which parts of the country, of course, get more frequent storms. But I think areas like the Rockies, maybe some parts of the Great Lakes, it's going to be fairly typical where they're going to see at least some occasional strong storms and maybe blizzards here and there. So, we'll be keeping track of it all winter long, and hopefully it won't be that bad.
All right, Nick, I'm going to hold you to that one good snow down here.
All right.
We got one good snow last year. So
one snow. I want one good weekend a month that I can golf. That's my request from you, Nick.
All right.
Go turn the dials.
We got a big deal coming up on Thursdays. This is something we've been hinting at and pushing forward. We've been building partnerships for this massive event that we're going to do on Thursday, and it's finally almost here. And that is, of course, SpaceWaves.
Yes, SpaceWaves is very cool, right? So, the virtual event presented by FreightWaves on December 3rd, exploring the future supply chain possibilities in space and how they intersect with new commercial opportunities and advanced rocket technologies. Mark Weiss has possibly the coolest job title I've ever heard.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, he's manager for the Gateway Program's Deep Space Logistics Project, but I think he's manager of Deep Space Logistics at NASA.
Yeah, that's as cool as it gets.
That's pretty. I'm going to say it. It's pretty badass.
It is. It's awesome.
And he's going to keynote.
Yeah, exactly.
And then directly after the keynote, we're going to do a live Q&A. Dooner and I will be at the desk and have Mark Weiss and a couple other folks from NASA, and you'll be able to do a live Q&A with them. So figure out how you can be a space trucker, right? Do you have to know the Deep Purple tune or?
I love it. No, it's great because there's actually so many. All the logistics lessons that they're going to be employing. And deep space and on Mars, they've learned from here, or they've gotten lessons from logistics missions on Earth. That was the main speaking point. I have a conversation coming up with Sidney Doe, who is a NASA systems engineer.
Oh, yeah, very cool.
It's really cool. Definitely the smartest guy I've ever spoken to. And he basically leads a mission that is the Mars Sample Return mission. That's one of his missions. They are going to Mars. The Mars Perseverance is already on its way. It'll be landing there in February. It's going to collect rock samples on Mars for about 3 or 4 years, and then they're going to launch a vehicle to go get it, and then with a rocket on it to return those samples back to Earth.
That's what they're going to do.
It's incredible. That's the plan. It'll be the first time they've ever sent anything back from Mars.
A 4-year free time on the load.
We've got a while. Yeah, the projected launch
just looking
to
at
return
detention.
You'd have some major detention fees. For sure. But it's going to be great. He told me that they learned a lot about how they're going to sustain life on Mars from how they're sustaining life in Antarctica, based on the short delivery times that you have to get everything in and out, and the difficult isolated places that they live, and that the environment's pretty close, right? It's very dry, it's very cold, and it's just kind of isolated. But it's going to be great. That's a conversation with Sydney. There's a bunch of other conversations coming up. Are you guys going to do a What the Truck?
No, but we've got a lot of interviews. We've got about 6 different interviews on Thursday. So, we'll be digging deep into Artemis. I guess Artemis is to get the next man and woman on the moon and start to build out the camps and the stations so that we can then leapfrog to Mars, right?
Mars, yep.
From there.
Correct. Yeah. And then we're also going to do a Great Quarter Guys. Seth Holm and I are going to do a Great Quarter Guys with Ron Epstein, who is, I think, the most bullish analyst on Wall Street for the space tourism stocks. So about at the beginning of this year, he came out with a price target for Virgin Galactic, which was double the share price currently, and he caught a lot of flack for it, but now you're starting to see a lot of momentum. We saw Virgin Galactic just get a huge Department of Defense contract yesterday. So maybe he's right. We're going to talk about what he thinks about the value of the future of space tourism. So that should be great.
Yeah, space tourism. That's very cool. And having lunch, we met Mark Weiss last year in Nashville, and speaking with him, it's very interesting. They try and recruit people from all walks of life and all industries, logistics in particular. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to work for NASA, which was kind of interesting to me, right? And I think what's really interesting is your discussion is going to be really interesting because you always hear of what we learned from space exploration, all the things that we have on Earth now that you don't know they came from it, including really nice pens that work upside down, right? But now they're taking that forward into space, in the logistics of space. What we're doing here on Earth is really interesting to me. So I love it. Yesterday on What the Truck, we talked about General Motors and kind of their.
You had to see that one coming.
Yeah. Are you shocked?
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, when Nikola came out, when the new guy that's running Nikola came out a few weeks ago and made no mention of the Badger, I had to think that that's kind of a foregone thought.
Yeah, I'm a little upset by that. I like the look of
it's a
the
gorgeous
Badger.
truck. Yeah, I mean, it is just it's just a digital recreation. There's
I know. Yeah, Dooners. Yeah, so they, Nikola or GM backs off from Nikola. The Black Friday buying numbers, as we talked about, those were on there, and you can catch new shows live at noon Eastern time on Mondays and Fridays, and get the What to Truck newsletter at FreightWaves.com/WTT. Catch all our shows at FreightWaves.tv and check out FreightWaves.com.